This land of towering mountains. A land with seas of sage and thunder-cleared skies. A place of quaking aspens and red rock deserts. A place that births rivers that carve immense canyons. Beauty and grit side by side. Colorado is widely regarded as a leader and champion of outdoor recreation. A lifestyle that is deeply integrated into the state's culture and economy. As a people, we engage and pursue a life outside. Rivers carry our stories. Trails lead us home. The mountains, mesas, and deserts call us back, again and again. But there's one glaring contradiction that unquestionably mars this image. Stream access. Stream access takes on many forms. It's as simple as wading out to cast a line, or launching a raft onto the river. Accessing Colorado's waterways is a fundamental component of our culture and identity, but it's also an enduring conflict.
Tonight, a lawsuit between a fisherman and a property owner in Fremont County over use of the Arkansas River could actually have wide-ranging implications. Our state attorney general's office has now intervened in that case and asking the court to dismiss.
It just violates my sense of what does it mean to be a believer in the rule of law. Went in his house, got a .38 special gun, came back out, took steady aim, and fired at him. I hope we can solve this problem before someone gets killed over a principle of who gets to be where. We need to have, in Colorado, clarity on what are the rules for where you can be and what rivers. We are heading for the river. I just love rivers. I love what I see in them. I see a river and I start looking for where would I cast a fly. Rivers just turn me on. We're going to go fish. We're going to hopefully catch a fish and get arrested.
And just to be clear, they're entering the river from BLM public land. Then they will be on the river, which is also state-owned public land.
Look good while it looks like we're trying to catch fish.
Yes.
The only way that we can have a court adjudicate Roger's rights to fish are testing it and getting confronted and getting arrested if necessary to then be able to claim the right to be on the river. Colorado prides itself on being a great state for outdoor recreation. Colorado is probably one of the worst, maybe the worst state in the country in terms of providing public access rights to our streams. And if you don't have access to our streams, then you're missing a huge part of the outdoor recreational experience. Our Colorado Constitution provides that the waters of every natural stream in the state of Colorado are hereby declared to be the property of the public and dedicated to the use of the people.
Colorado is an outlier. Unlike most states in the West, where the public has guaranteed access to navigable waters for fishing and floating through private property, Colorado has never recognized any river in the state as navigable. So what exactly is navigability? At its core, It boils down to what rights does the public have to access and enjoy Colorado's waterways, an issue every other Western state has addressed.
The way I think about stream access in Colorado is really, frankly, a lack of direction. The core issue of the public's access to rivers and streams really all around the country relates to navigability. Colorado has never had a ruling of a court. There's never been an action of the executive branch or the legislative branch of government to define what navigable is.
The law on navigable rivers is quite different from the law relating to non-navigable rivers, and that's because it is based largely on the federal Constitution.
If rivers were navigable at the time of statehood or susceptible to navigability, then they should be open to commerce, including public activities like fishing, wading, and floating on rivers.
If you can show that a river is navigable for tidal, then the public has a right to use that river for recreational purposes, for navigation, for commerce, and the Supreme Court has told us that.
Here in Colorado, however, both for navigable and non-navigable streams, the law does not recognize the public's rights. And Colorado is an outlier compared to all other Western states in this regard that have some greater degree of public access that they provide.
When a state gets title to the navigable rivers, it's not like title that they get to other property. It is a title that they hold in trust for the people of the state so that they may carry on commerce, navigation, and enjoy the liberty of fishing therein, as the court said, free from any interference by third parties. So if you can show that the river is navigable for tidal, you get to stand in the bed. You're standing on state property. The case that is probably the most important in this area is a case called People versus Emmert. And in the Emmert case, what happened was that several people were arrested by the local sheriff for tubing through private property. The court quite clearly held that the public has no right to float through private property. That case has been kind of an albatross around our neck ever since.
In 1979, David Emmert and a couple of his friends were floating on the Colorado River in Grand County through a private cattle ranch. They were essentially arrested for trespass and ended up going all the way to the Colorado Supreme Court. And that was really the first time in history that the Colorado Supreme Court
had addressed the public's ability to access our waterways.
If you're floating on a river, maybe you're started off on public land, you're going further downstream and you end up with private property, you are now trespassing.
By reaching that decision, they used a phrase from 12th century Italian jurisprudence that said that "Ye who owns the land owns everything below all the way to hell and everything above all the way to heaven." That's a phrase from medieval Europe, prior to modern democracies, prior to any sense of the developing public interest that people have in our wild resources and the great resources that we have in this country, with such a huge percentage of our country being public land accessible to all.
The law was changed in a way to avoid criminal trespass, so even though the Emmert defendants were charged with criminal trespass and convicted of criminal trespass, right now you can still be charged with civil trespass, and if you're charged with civil trespass, you basically are going to be barred from going on that river, because if you go back, you're in contempt of court, and that would be a criminal charge against you. So the Emmert case effectively has made it illegal for people to float through private property. Even if you're not using the river for recreational purposes like boating and fishing, the fact that you can walk alongside a river and enjoy the amenity values associated with that river is a really important asset for the people of Colorado.
And so I think it really is important for people to understand like what their rights are and not. But at the same time, it's also hard to communicate that to people when the law itself is very unclear.
This is exactly the situation Roger Hill found himself in. In the middle of an ambiguous tension that exists between landowners and river users in Colorado, where even unintentional contact can lead to conflict, trespassing charges, or assault. These disputes over access are in part being fueled by the currents of public interest colliding against privatization, but mostly due to Colorado's refusal to address these issues whatsoever.
So we're going down this gulch and going up to near the private property line and heading down. We'll be on BLM the whole time.
Well, right down here is very good fishing.
Until you're going to enter the river from the BLM land and then walk downstream from there to places that we want to fish, being in the high water mark the whole time.
Some people have said, are you engaging in civil disobedience? And I say, no, we're just asserting our right to do what we have a legal right to do, what we believe we have a legal right to do. It's not civil disobedience because we're not breaking any laws. We respect the rights of private property owners. However, when it comes to the recreational use of Colorado's rivers, we believe that the Colorado legislature should clarify the limited right for the recreational use of streams to balance private property interests with public access.
You want to fish down here, you'll have to buy your own property.
For many landowners, the issue is about protecting their rights and property. While for the public, it's about preserving access to Colorado's common waters.
Private property rights are the longest rights historically. So at the end of the day, it's a balance, right? We as a legislator, my job is not to essentially erode people's rights. And sometimes laws may change, but mindsets are harder to change.
We're not talking about infringing on water rights or property rights. We just want to clarify what's a very murky set of laws. And in the end, it benefits all of us. I want to emphasize the increase in population in Colorado will clearly drive more incidents.
Largely, the opposition to the right to float in Colorado has been people with a lot of money, people with private property, and also people in the water rights community.
That bringing clarity around the recreational use of rivers in Colorado is seen as adversarial to the interests of landowners.
How does wisdom inform a clash of rights? So here is a right of the property owners to their property. And here is a right of the general public to access the rivers that they want to float down, they want to fish in. These are those difficult conversations that I think that we are tasked by the public to go address.
There are a lot of opportunities for bipartisanship when it comes to the outdoors. That's something that I believe that everyone can agree on. Within the state of Colorado, we're very lucky that we have legislators who care deeply about protecting our public spaces, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
The highest and best use of all of this that we see is providing that sustenance to the soul that comes about from just being outdoors in scenic country. And the rivers are the same thing. It's just something that's wild and beautiful and has to be there and has to be available for the people to appreciate it. It's time to take a bold step forward, to set clear, fair standards for future generations. There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things.
For me, equity means access to everyone.
I think there's something hardwired in us, whereby we get meaning from being in the outdoors.
I think the outdoors is just one of the greatest benefits that we have here as a human.
I think that access to rivers and waterways isn't just about fishing or rafting or recreating. It's definitely about the connection we have to nature and to the land. There's a really big outdoor culture in the state. Protecting and giving access to these waterways preserves that way of life.
We have a system that says that these waters aren't common, that these waters aren't for people to enjoy.
What do we, as people who love our rivers and streams, believe there should be greater access? What do we want to do? The best outcome is for us to, as the public, as people who float, fish, we need to work together to expand these laws.
When I think about the public and the public interest, I think about broad, commonly held values, how we protect the common good for all the people. And the stream access issue just fits right into that for me.
I expect lawmakers to push through legislation to allow us access to these waterways.
The opportunity is right here in front of us to clarify the law. And in so doing, we maintain and enhance our quality of life.
I don't care if I never catch another fish in my life, to tell you the truth. I've caught plenty of fish. If God said to me, Roger, you've caught your last fish, I'd say, okay. If on the other hand, what he said was, you've gone fishing for the last time, then I would immediately commence negotiations with Satan as to the value of my soul measured in additional days on the river.